In this video, I'm going to show you how I can reliably predict how successful you're going to be in your business or in your life within just a few minutes of talking to you. And if you stick to the end of the video, I'm going to show you how you can literally change the universe to conform to the vision that you have of yourself. You can use the concepts from this video to reverse engineer massive amounts of success in your life. Maybe you're unhappy with your business, you're unhappy with your current path, you're unhappy with the amount of money you make, how much success you have. I'm going to show you exactly how to achieve what you want out of life. So years ago, before I had my own business, I used to have a day job doing tree service. You know, doing tree removals, tree pruning, tree planting, stump grinding, anything in the tree service industry. We'd show up to people's houses, we'd prune their trees, whatever they needed done. So every day I would show up to a job site, the boss man would get there, whatever crew we were working with would get there, and almost every single day followed the exact same pattern. The boss would get there and he would announce loudly to the crew how anxious he was, how scary the job was. He'd start listing off all the possible things that could potentially go wrong, and he'd describe how sick he felt. And to be fair, if you don't know much about tree work and the tree service industry, obviously it is kind of a dangerous job. A lot of times we're taking out trees. Maybe there's a limb that's going near power lines or over a house, or it's growing really close to somebody's vehicles or something like that. And so there's a lot of technical stuff that has to get done in order to remove trees safely, and there is potential for stuff to go wrong. But the reality is, the probability of things going wrong, if you're adhering to basic safety protocols, the probability of stuff going wrong is very, very small. And I worked this job for close to 8 years. Almost nothing ever went wrong. The jobs always went smoothly. Stuff worked out. But the boss's mindset when he got to these job sites was always focused on the most extreme negative outcomes, or the worst possible case scenarios that could happen, even though the probability of them happening was always very tiny. Every day he acted like we were on the brink of something terrible happening. And if you've been around negative people before, you know that that negative energy is just extremely toxic. It just seeps into everything. When somebody in your friend group or your family or your workspace is negative, that just seeps into everybody else's mood and their attitude, and it just brings everybody down. It drags them down. Mindset, whether it's negative or positive, when it's coming from a position of leadership, if you're like the boss, if you're like, the leader of the household or the leader of your friend group or whatever, your mindset tends to predict how other people are going to behave around you. If you show up with a bad attitude, other people are going to kind of reflect that back to you. That's just how humans behave. And in my life, my experience, what I've found is that people that tend to have these negative mindsets, these negative outlooks, they just seem to always be unlucky. And I'm sure you can relate to this as well. If you think of the most negative person that you've ever met, the person that's always got a bad attitude, that person just seems like they have bad stuff always happening to them. And sure enough, this guy that I'm describing, this business owner, this boss, he just always seemed to have the worst possible luck. His tools were always breaking. His truck was always breaking down. He was always having problems at home with his wife and kids. They were always fighting about stuff, always having problems. And he always had drama going on with other friends of his and other business owners that he knew. Like he was just always just perpetually in negative situations, having bad stuff happen to him. And here's my little graphic showing him showing up to tree job sites, stressing out, acting like the world was ending, something terrible was going to happen, The reality of the universe is this. This little stick figure represents you just going through your regular life, your day-to-day life, and the question marks represent stuff that happens to you, like interactions that you're having with other people, like conversations, or events that are happening. It's just stuff that happens in your life, right? By default, when something happens in your life, no matter what it is, it's just a neutral event. That's why I represent it with a question mark in this graphic. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're backing out of your driveway. You're going to go to work or whatever. And then as you're backing out of your driveway, somebody hits you with their car. Now, in the exact moment that that's happening, it's a completely neutral event. There's no negative or positive spin to it. You and I might agree that that's a negative event. It happened, it's going to obviously slow your day down, but we're casting a judgment on it after the fact. We might be in agreement that it's negative, but that judgment comes after the fact. It's a neutral event, and then we're making a negative judgment about it. We're saying, oh, this is a bad event that happened because it's going to mess your whole day up. Now you got to deal with insurance companies. Now you got to go get your car repaired. We're saying it's negative after it happened, but in the moment, it's completely neutral. The same thing with any kind of other interaction or event that happens in your life. In the moment that it happens, it's completely neutral, and then how you interpret it afterward, whether you decide to put a negative or a positive spin on it, is a judgment that you're casting after the fact. And this is why you'll see throughout life, you'll meet people that they'll have stuff happen to them, and you might have had a similar situation, and some people will just choose to put a positive spin on it, whereas other people will choose to put a negative spin on it. That's just these are judgments that people are making to neutral events. Anything that happens in the universe is neutral. It's human judgment that makes it negative or positive. This is called confirmation bias. It's a type of bias where you're seeing something happening, some kind of information is coming to you, and then you are making some kind of judgment on how it relates to you. In other words, you've chosen to interpret an event based on your previously held beliefs. You're choosing to create a story around it, whether it's negative or positive. Let me give you another example of confirmation bias. Let's say you and I are in a car. I'm driving, you're sitting in the passenger seat. We're just driving along the road. And then I say, wow, there's a lot of red vehicles on the road today. And you're looking out the window and you're going, wow, okay, yeah, there is a lot of red vehicles. Several red vehicles pass us as we're driving. You look over to the right, you see a tire shop, and the workers are all working on a red vehicle, and then a red truck passes us, and then we pass a parking lot, and you notice there's a ton of red vehicles just happen to be parked there, and there's a ton of red vehicles parked by the side of the road, and then a red fire truck goes by us. In that moment, it's not that there's suddenly tons of red cars. It's that you've created a filter in your mind in that moment to just see red cars. It's a form of confirmation bias. You're looking out into the world, and your brain is now filtering for red cars. Plenty of other colored vehicles out there. There might even be more white vehicles than red, but you have created a filter in your mind, so now you're only seeing red cars. You're not noticing the other colors. This is a form of confirmation bias. I created a belief in your mind. The belief is that there's a lot of red vehicles out here, and now you've confirmed that belief. You're like, oh wow, there is a lot of red vehicles, and now you've casted that judgment. You've created that interpretation of your world in the moment, and now you're seeing red vehicles everywhere. Well, confirmation bias applies to negative and positive in your life. So what happens to negative people with negative mindsets, is here's this person running through life. All these question marks represent stuff that's happening to them, interactions with people, events, maybe a car accident. They show up to a job site, whatever. Stuff is happening to them. They're choosing to take each of these events and see just the negative. They're choosing a path, a confirmation bias that's negative. And so people that tend to be a lot more negative will tend to just entirely ignore the positive, in the same way that you sitting in a vehicle ignore all the other vehicles that aren't red. You only see the red. A person with a negative mindset only sees the negative of everything, every event, anything that could possibly happen to them, every conversation, every job they take. They only see the negative in it. And because they only see the negative and they focus on the negative, their brain is now filtering for that, and they just attract more negativity in their life. They filter out all the positive things that are happening, and they just see negativity. And so I can reliably predict whether or not somebody is going to be successful just by talking to them and seeing how they interface with life. If they choose to put a negative spin on everything, they're going to just be unlucky. That's just what it is. They're interpreting the world as unlucky. They might even say stuff like, I've always been unlucky. I'm always anxious. Bad stuff always happens to me. And they've created that filter, and now that's all they can get. That's all they can receive from God or the universe. That's all they can see. They just get negativity all the time. But here's the good news. I used to be one of these people. I'm speaking from experience here. So I used to be the type of person that interpreted everything as negativity. I used to think I was incredibly unlucky, incredibly unfortunate. The universe hated me and stuff like that. And I interpreted everything as negative. But at some point in my life, I realized I was the one creating the negativity, and I started to change my mindset. I started to do gratitude practices. I started to do meditation. I started to notice the positive in everything intentionally. And it took a long time to train this. It's not something that necessarily can change overnight, but with practice, I've created a new filter for my mind. And with that new filter, my life is now going great. There's very little negative that happens to me. And the reason I tell you this is not to brag, it's to tell you that you can intentionally engineer your life to be more lucky by just focusing on the good. If you're a business owner and you're showing up to the job, whether it's a job site or Zoom meetings, or you're showing up to an office, if you're the type of person that chooses to focus on the negative, you're going to not only attract more negative, but you're going to infect the mindset of everybody else that works under you to do the same thing. But if you flip that and you choose to focus on the positive, you choose to look at the good in every event, every situation that happens. Again, like we talked about, when stuff happens to you, it's inherently neutral. You're choosing to make a judgment on it after the fact. Even if everybody else in the room thinks an event is negative, you can still choose to put a positive spin on it and see the good of it. You can choose to take this negative thing and say, well, this thing happened, but look at the lessons we learned. Look what it forced us to do to become better. And when you make these choices, it's a daily choice. When you make this choice to do this with every event that happens in your life, you can completely change your entire future. If you choose to see the positive, you will attract more positive into your life. Take these neutral events, choose to see the lesson in them, choose to see the positive outcomes from them, and you will attract more of that, and your life will improve radically. And that's all I have to say on the subject today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. This video found its way into your life for a reason. I hope you choose to see this event as a positive one that improves your life. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. If you learn how to change your mindset like I have, your business is going to improve. Your life is going to improve. Your life's just going to be a lot better. I promise it. I guarantee it. Thanks for watching.